All right, welcome to POLS 3213, Bureaucratic Politics. This is a course on bureaucracy, why we have it, at least in theory, why we need it, how we could maybe do better with bureaucratic implementation. I think this is a course, this is the first time we've offered it, so obviously it's kind of a new experience. We're also using a new learning management system, so I think it's a good idea for me to take a little time and try to explain what the course is about. I think in a nutshell, we're basically talking about the institutions that make up the federal executive branch. There, of course, is state-run bureaucracies as well. We'll leave that for a different class. It's important to keep in mind that the bureaucracy sits in a nexus between and among the constitutional branches of government. Of course, the president is sort of nominally the head, but also Congress, effectively is extending to a bureaucratic agency some of its, legislative authority to implement policies. And then, of course, you've also got, the federal judiciary is in a position to, rule on whether or not bureaucratic agencies are violating people's rights or whether their actions are in some way in violation of the Constitution. So, I basically, when I teach this, when I teach a chapter on bureaucracy and American federal government, I'm arguing that this is where the rubber is hitting the road in terms of government. This is where things are actually happening, right? Presidents can issue executive orders, Congress can pass laws, justices and judges, federal judges can issue rulings, but until and unless the federal bureaucracy takes up an action, these are just words, right? So this is an important class, and it's a class I think, unfortunately, too many Americans don't fully understand or comprehend the role that bureaucracy plays in government generally. We have the option. We can have the military force things to happen, or we can do things through the Constitution, and I think to some extent the Constitution kind of structures how bureaucratic agencies are able to act. There tends to be this sort of balancing act that you were often looking at with bureaucratic agencies. We want them to have sufficient latitude to do things. This is something we call administrative discretion, because these are experts. They should be in the best position to say how to implement a policy. Congress oftentimes is not in a good position to articulate how a policy should be implemented. So, a lot of times congressional statutes authorizing an executive branch agency to act are somewhat vague. And that's something that I think we're beginning to fight with, because I think there are a number of conservatives in the federal judiciary who would like to basically force Congress to be more clear in terms of what they're empowering executive branch agencies to do. Against that, you have the realities that these are experts, but they're not elected. And so, a lot of people would argue that the more that executive branch agencies and bureaucracies in general are doing the governing on a day-to-day basis, the less democratic is the governance, and that's that is a legitimate concern, and but it's also something that may prove to be somewhat unrealistic in a nation of this size. There's a certain amount of stuff that has to be done, and the executive, the federal branch of government is, the federal government generally is basically immobilized by hyperpartisanship. So at some point you have to be prepared to say, these folks have the latitude to act. We can conduct oversight over them, but it's important to keep in mind that this is sort of the way things work. We're moving to Blackboard in the fall. I've been working with it this summer. I still am not particularly comfortable with it, but it's similar to other courses that I've taught. So if you've had me in other classes, this shouldn't be too great a departure. Each week when you look at a file, there's going to be a number of things in it. There will be an overview. which is basically laying out the the learning objectives and kind of providing a broad, again, overview of what it is that we're going to cover that week. There will be a file showing you what readings you're responsible for that week. There will be a presentation file where I'm going to do like a little 5-minute, here's what we're dealing with this week. And that will include, hopefully study guides and PowerPoints for the assigned reading. There will be probably a box for you guys to submit questions to before we meet on Tuesday. I want you guys to have been, to have read the material and come up with a couple of questions. I'll have more guidance on that later. There will be a weekly quiz. And again, there will be different sections of multiple choice questions, concept ID, and short answers. It'll be worth 15 points. 2 of them will be kind of brief, paragraph length responses. And then there will be a summary section, again, that basically summarizes what you should have learned over the course of the week. So, hopefully this will be a fun class. I mean, it's hard to look at a class with bureaucratic politics and say this could be fun. I know when I was a student, I did not come alive when people started mentioning, bureaucratic politics. Nevertheless, it's a very important subject, and hopefully in the classes that we have, and again, this is an on-ground class, so the course site is a supplement to what we're going to be doing in the classroom. And so, again, I think this is an important topic. I think that it's a subject that Americans oftentimes have a very poor understanding of, and so I'm looking forward to the challenge of trying to make this this subject both approachable and interesting and kind of fun. Again, I think I like to teach Socratically, and I'll talk more about that later. But I believe that you learn best when you're in a conversation and you're playing with ideas and learning from other people, not just me, but from your fellow classmates. So again, welcome to the class, and I hope we have a lot of fun over the course of the 16 weeks.